The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing that caught the afternoon light streaming through my apartment window. Sophia and James request the honor of your presence at their engagement celebration. My cousin Sophia. Golden child. Perfect grades, perfect boyfriend, perfect life trajectory that my mother recited like a prayer every time we spoke on the phone. I held the invitation between my fingers, feeling the weight of expensive paper stock, and something cold settled in my chest. The kind of cold that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with memory. With anticipation of pain you know is coming but can't avoid. My phone buzzed. Mom. Did you get it? No, hello. No, how are you? Just the question, loaded with everything unsaid. Just now, I said, setting the invitation on my kitchen counter, watching it there like it might explode. You'll come, of course. And you'll bring someone? The pause before someone was deliberate. Surgical. My mother had a gift for making pauses into weapons. I was 32 years old. I had a medical degree from Johns Hopkins. I was an ER attending at Mercy General, one of the busiest trauma centers in the state. I had performed a successful thoracotomy in the field last month, and the paramedic who assisted me said it was the most badass thing he'd ever seen. But none of that mattered when my mother used that tone. I'll be there, I said. Alone, then. Not a question. A verdict. No, actually. I'm bringing my fiancé. The silence on the other end was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Then, you're what? My fiancé. Ethan. I've mentioned him. I had mentioned him. Once. 3 months ago, in passing, during a call where my mother spent 40 minutes detailing Sophia's wedding planning timeline. I'm seeing someone, I'd said. It's serious. She'd made a sound that might have been acknowledgement or dismissal. With her, it was hard to tell, and moved on to discussing centerpieces. Natalie. My full name. Never a good sign. Don't do this. Do what? Make something up because you feel pressure. It's fine if you're single. No one expects. I'm not making anything up, Mom. His name is Ethan Cross. He's a trauma surgeon. We've been together for 14 months. We got engaged in October. Every word was true. Every single word. And yet saying them out loud to my mother felt like standing on the witness stand, knowing the jury had already decided. October, she repeated. And you're just telling us now? I told you I was seeing someone. Seeing someone and engaged are very different things, Natalie. I pressed my fingers to the bridge of my nose, feeling the familiar tension headache building behind my eyes. I'd worked a double shift yesterday, 22 hours straight, and I was due back at the hospital in 6 hours. I didn't have the energy for this. We'll both be there, I said. You can meet him then. If he exists. The words hung in the air like smoke. Not quite an accusation. Just doubt, wrapped in maternal concern. He exists, Mom. Well. A long exhale. I suppose we'll see. She hung up before I could respond. I stood in my kitchen, in the apartment I'd finally been able to afford after years of student loans and resident poverty, and felt like I was 12 years old again, trying to convince my parents that yes, I really had been picked for the academic decathlon team. No, the coach didn't make a mistake. Yes, I was actually good at something. My phone was still in my hand. I pulled up Ethan's contact and called. He answered on the second ring. Hey, beautiful. Aren't you supposed to be sleeping? The sound of his voice, warm, rough around the edges, genuinely pleased to hear from me, made my chest loosen slightly. Can't sleep. Got my cousin's engagement party invitation. The perfect cousin? The one and only. When is it? Saturday. Black tie. At the Belmont estate. I paused. My mom called. Ah. He understood immediately. Ethan had met my parents exactly once, briefly, at a medical conference where they happened to be in the same city. My mother had been polite in the way you're polite to waitstaff, courteous but distant, asking no follow-up questions. My father had shaken his hand and immediately started talking about a cardiac surgeon he knew, someone's son, brilliant young man, as if Ethan wasn't standing right there with his own impressive credentials. She doesn't think you're real, I said. I'm sorry, what? She thinks I made you up. Like an imaginary friend. A defense mechanism against family judgment. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, that's actually kind of impressive. The psychological profile she's constructed of you requires some seriously committed denial. Despite everything, I laughed. It's a gift she has. Do you want me there? His voice was careful now. Saturday. I'm supposed to be on call, but I can get Martinez to cover. If you want me there, I'll be there. I looked at the invitation on my counter, gold letters catching the light. Thought about walking into that party alone, fielding questions about my relationship status while Sophia floated around in something designer, her hand extended to show off her ring. Thought about my mother's face when I arrived solo after explicitly saying I wouldn't be. Thought about the alternative, bringing Ethan, proving I wasn't the lonely, desperate woman they all seemed convinced I was, even though I'd literally saved 3 lives last week and had a job most people would kill for. I want you there, I said quietly. If you don't mind being put on display like a prize at a county fair. I've been through worse. Remember that gunshot wound patient last month who kept trying to fight the nurses? Your family can't be harder to handle than meth psychosis combined with thoracic trauma. You'd be surprised. I'm going to win them over with my devastating charm and encyclopedic knowledge of cardiovascular surgery. Your dad's a cardiologist, right? I'll just recite stats about bypass grafts until he loves me. That's actually not a terrible strategy. I have hidden depths. I could hear the smile in his voice. Get some sleep, Nat. I'll handle getting Martinez to cover my shift. We'll show up, we'll be aggressively normal and happy, and then we'll leave early and get Thai food. Thai food? The best part of any formal event is leaving it. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen for a long moment, holding my phone. The apartment was quiet except for the ambient hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic from the street below. I was exhausted in the way that goes beyond physical tiredness, bone deep, soul tired, the kind of fatigue that comes from constantly proving yourself to people who've already decided you'll never quite measure up. I picked up the invitation again, ran my thumb over the embossed lettering. RSVP by December 10th. I grabbed a pen and checked the box, will attend. +1. Then I set it aside and tried to convince myself that everything would be fine. ACT2, the rescue Saturday arrived with the kind of crystalline winter weather that looks beautiful and feels like knives. Temperature hovering just above freezing, clear sky threatening snow, the kind of day where you can see your breath and every car windshield is frosted white. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, trying to create the illusion of someone who wasn't perpetually sleep-deprived. Concealer under my eyes to hide the bruised dark circles. Mascara. Lipstick in a shade my mother would probably call trying too hard or not trying hard enough. She had a gift for both criticisms simultaneously. The dress was simple, elegant, midnight blue that my best friend Sam had insisted brought out my eyes. I'd spent more than I should have on it, but I needed armor for tonight. Something that said successful professional adult woman rather than exhausted doctor who ate cereal for dinner 3 times this week. My phone buzzed. Ethan, downstairs. No rush. I took one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back looked put together, composed, the kind of person who had her life figured out. It was a convincing illusion. Ethan was leaning against his car when I came out, charcoal suit, navy tie, looking unfairly good for someone who'd worked until 3 a.m. last night. He straightened when he saw me, and his face did that thing it always did, the slight softening around his eyes that made me feel like maybe I was worth looking at that way. "You look incredible," he said. "You clean up okay yourself." He opened the passenger door for me, which was both sweet and strategic. We'd agreed on the drive over that we needed to present as the kind of couple who did these small gestures naturally. United front. Believable. The Belmont estate was 40 minutes outside the city, a sprawling property with manicured gardens and the kind of old-money architecture that whispered rather than shouted. Cars lined the circular driveway, mostly luxury vehicles that probably cost more than my annual salary. Ethan found parking and turned off the engine. "Ready?" he asked. "No. But let's go anyway." He came around to my side, offered his hand. I took it, feeling the warmth of his palm against mine, and we walked toward the entrance like we were heading into battle. The engagement party was in the main ballroom, all crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking frost-covered gardens. At least 100 people milled around holding champagne flutes, their voices creating a low murmur of wealth and satisfaction. String quartet in the corner. Servers circulating with hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more per bite than my lunch budget for a week. I spotted my parents immediately. They were near the bar, my mother in a cream-colored dress that probably came from her favorite boutique, my father in his standard formal uniform of expensive suit and permanent expression of mild disappointment. They were talking to Aunt Linda, Sophia's mother, who was glowing with maternal pride. My mother saw me first. Her eyes went wide, not with pleasure, but with something closer to shock. Then her gaze shifted to Ethan beside me, and her expression transformed into something I couldn't quite read. Surprise? Suspicion? Recalculation? Natalie! Aunt Linda spotted us and rushed over, champagne sloshing slightly in her glass. "You made it! And you must be Ethan Cross," he said smoothly, extending his hand. "It's wonderful to meet you. Nat's told me so much about Sophia's engagement." "Congratulations." Aunt Linda beamed, shaking his hand enthusiastically. "Oh, how lovely! We had no idea Natalie was bringing someone." "Your mother said," she caught herself, glancing at my mother, who had materialized beside her with the silent efficiency of a particularly judgmental ghost. "Hello, Natalie," my mother said. Her eyes were on Ethan, assessing him the way you might evaluate a suspicious mole. "And this is Ethan Cross," I said, hearing the edge in my own voice. "My fiancé. As I mentioned. Your fiancé." My mother repeated the word like she was testing it for authenticity. "How nice that you could make it, Mr. Cross. I wasn't sure if you'd be available." The subtext was clear, I wasn't sure if you existed. "Wouldn't miss it," Ethan said, his hand finding the small of my back in a gesture of casual intimacy. Nat's been looking forward to seeing everyone. My father joined us then, and there was a moment of awkward introductions and handshaking while I stood there feeling like a specimen under glass. My mother kept studying Ethan, looking for something, proof of fraud, maybe, or evidence that he was being paid to be here. "So you're a doctor as well?" my father asked, his tone suggesting this was the first interesting thing about the situation. "Trauma surgeon at Mercy General. Same hospital as Nat." "Ah. How convenient." My mother's smile was tight. "That's how you met." "Coffee cart in the doctor's lounge," Ethan said easily. She was coming off a 30-hour shift and looked like she might actually commit homicide if someone took the last chocolate croissant. I gave her mine. Best decision I ever made. It was true, mostly. The timeline was slightly compressed for narrative efficiency, but the spirit was accurate. Aunt Linda laughed. "That's adorable." "Sophia and James met at a charity gala, did you hear? He's in investment banking. Just brilliant. They've already picked out a house in Greenwich." And there it was. The comparison. Sophia's perfect meet-cute at a charity gala versus my exhausted doctor threatening violence over pastries origin story. Sophia's investment banker versus my actually very impressive trauma surgeon, but one who worked at the same hospital as me, which somehow made it less impressive in their eyes. I felt Ethan's hand tighten slightly on my back, a silent communication, "I've got you." "We should congratulate Sophia," I said. "Where is she?" "Oh, holding court by the fireplace," Aunt Linda said, gesturing vaguely. Go. She'll be thrilled to see you." We excused ourselves and made our way through the crowd. I could feel my mother's eyes following us, burning into my back. "Well," Ethan murmured, "that was warm and welcoming." "I told you." Your mom looked at me like I might be a hologram. "Give her time. She'll escalate to assuming you're an actor I hired." Sophia was indeed holding court, surrounded by a cluster of friends and relatives all admiring her ring, a massive diamond that caught the chandelier light and threw rainbows across her hand. She looked beautiful, radiant, everything a newly engaged woman was supposed to be. When she saw me, her face lit up with what seemed like genuine pleasure. "Natalie!" She rushed over, pulling me into a hug that smelled like expensive perfume and happiness. "Oh my God, you came. And you brought Ethan," I supplied. "My fiancé." Sophia's eyes went wide. "You're what? Since when? Why didn't you tell me?" "Since October. And I did tell people. They just didn't believe me." "October!" She grabbed my left hand, looking for a ring. I'd been wearing it for 2 months, simple platinum band with a small sapphire, because Ethan knew I couldn't wear anything too elaborate at work. "Oh, it's beautiful. It's so you." She meant it as a compliment, I think. Understated. Practical. Not like her massive diamond, which probably required its own security detail. "Congratulations on your engagement," Ethan said, shaking James's hand. James was exactly what I'd expected, tall, good-looking in a generic way, expensive watch, firm handshake, the kind of guy who probably had opinions about scotch. "Likewise," James said. "Trauma surgery, I hear? That must be intense." "It has its moments." They started talking about work and stress management and the kind of surface-level guy conversation that happens at these events. Sophia pulled me aside slightly, lowering her voice. "Your mom said she didn't think you were bringing anyone." "My mom thought I was making him up." Sophia's face crinkled with sympathy. Oh, Nat. That's... I'm sorry. She probably just worried you felt pressure or something. I didn't feel pressure. I've been with him for over a year. I'm actually happy. Of course you are. He seems great. Really great. She squeezed my hand. I'm glad you're here. Both of you. And I believed her. Sophia had never been intentionally cruel, never part of the problem. She was just the standard everyone else measured me against, which wasn't her fault. The evening progressed in waves of social obligation. Introductions to relatives I hadn't seen in years, all of whom seemed shocked that I'd brought a date. Conversations with my parents' friends, who asked Ethan probing questions about his background and credentials like they were conducting a security clearance interview. My mother hovering nearby, listening to every answer, looking for inconsistencies. Through it all, Ethan was perfect. Charming without being obsequious. Knowledgeable without being arrogant. He laughed at the right moments, asked thoughtful questions, remembered names. He kept his hand on my back or my arm, small touches that signaled together without being performative. And I realized, standing there in that ballroom full of people who'd spent years making me feel inadequate, that this wasn't an act for him. He wasn't pretending to be proud of me or happy to be here. He genuinely was. Dinner was served, seated meal, name cards at every place, me and Ethan at a table with various cousins and family friends. The food was exquisite and I tasted none of it, too aware of my mother's table nearby, too conscious of being watched. During dessert, Sophia's father stood to give a toast. Loving words about his daughter, about James, about the joy of seeing your child find happiness. My own father raised his glass, his face arranged in appropriate sentiment, and I wondered if he'd ever looked at me that way. Proud. Satisfied. Like I'd done something right. After dinner, there was dancing. Ethan led me to the floor when they played something slow, and I let myself relax into him, into the solid warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat under my cheek. You're doing great, he murmured into my hair. I'm exhausted. I know. 1 more hour. Then Thai food. Promise? Promise. But before we could make our escape, my mother found us. She appeared at Ethan's shoulder, her expression inscrutable. Mr. Cross, could I borrow you for a moment? My husband wanted to discuss something about a surgical technique. Professional courtesy. It was a trap. Obviously a trap. But Ethan smiled and nodded. Of course. Nat, I'll be right back. He kissed my temple and followed my mother toward where my father stood near the bar. I watched them go, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Aunt Linda materialized beside me. Your young man seems lovely, dear. Thank you. Your mother was quite surprised. I noticed. She'd mentioned you were, well, focused on your career. Married to your work, so to speak. Translation, she told everyone you were terminally single and probably always would be. I'm good at multitasking, I said. Aunt Linda patted my arm. Well, I'm glad. You deserve happiness too, not just professional success. 2. As if the two were separate categories, one real and one compensatory. I excused myself and went to find Sam, my best friend and emergency backup, who I'd spotted earlier near the windows. She was studying the gardens, champagne in hand. How's the performance art going? She asked when I joined her. My mother pulled Ethan aside to interrogate him under the guise of medical discussion. Bold strategy. Think he'll crack? He removed a guy's spleen in a parking lot once while talking the patient through why the Orioles would never win the division. He's uncrackable. Sam laughed. You picked a good one. I know. So why do you look like you're about to throw up? I pressed my forehead against the cold window glass. Because none of this should matter. I shouldn't need to prove anything to them. I'm successful, I'm happy, I'm literally saving lives every day. But I'm standing here in a stupid expensive dress, parading my relationship like it's a trophy, just so they'll stop looking at me like I'm a failure. You're not a failure. I know that. Logically, I know that. But there's this 12-year-old inside me who still wants her parents to be proud of her, and she's fucking exhausting. Sam put her arm around my shoulders. The 12-year-old gets smaller every year. You're doing better than you think. Across the room, I could see Ethan talking with my parents. My mother's face was animated, intense. My father was nodding, saying something. Ethan's posture was relaxed but alert, the same stance he took in the ER when dealing with a difficult patient family. Calm, professional, unshakable. After what felt like hours but was probably 10 minutes, he excused himself and made his way back to me. His expression was carefully neutral. Well? I asked. Your mother wanted to know if we've set a date. What did you tell her? That we're thinking spring. Maybe May. Small ceremony, immediate family. We haven't finalized details because our schedules are insane. All of which was true. We'd talked about it, vaguely, in the way you do when you're serious about someone but also working 80-hour weeks and barely have time to do laundry. And your father wanted to know if I was familiar with the latest research on minimally invasive valve replacement. Which I am. We had a very stimulating conversation about surgical outcomes data. Did you win them over? Ethan's expression softened. Nat, I don't think that's actually possible. Not because of me. Because you've already decided they don't approve, so nothing they say or do will convince you otherwise. The observation was so accurate it felt like being slapped. They don't approve. Maybe. Or maybe they're just terrible at showing affection and you've spent 32 years interpreting their awkwardness as rejection. You sound like my therapist. Your therapist sounds smart. Before I could respond, the DJ announced Last Dance. Sophia and James took the floor, wrapped in each other, and everyone gathered to watch and applaud. Picture-perfect happiness. The kind of moment that gets framed and hung on walls. Ethan took my hand. Come on. Let's get out of here. I promised you Thai food. ACT3, investigation and fallout. We made our goodbyes, hugs for Sophia, handshakes with James, polite nods to various relatives. My parents were near the exit, and we couldn't avoid them. Leaving so early? My mother asked. Early shift tomorrow, Ethan said smoothly. But thank you for having us. It was lovely to meet everyone. My mother looked at me. Really looked at me, in a way she rarely did. Her expression was complicated, something that might have been surprise or reassessment or maybe just confusion. Drive safely, she said finally. In the car, with the heater blasting and the Belmont estate receding in the rearview mirror, I felt something in my chest release. Like I'd been holding my breath for 3 hours and could finally exhale. That was worse than the gunshot wound patient, Ethan said. I laughed, surprising myself. I warned you. You did. I thought you were exaggerating. I was wrong. Your mother actually asked me if I was married. What? She wanted to know if I was married to someone else. If this was some kind of elaborate affair or green card situation. Oh my God. I showed her my driver's license and my hospital ID. I think I convinced her I'm real, at least. I covered my face with my hands. I'm so sorry. Hey. He pulled over into a parking lot, put the car in park, and turned to face me. Nat, look at me. I lowered my hands. I don't care what your parents think, he said quietly. I care what you think. And I care that you spent tonight feeling like you had to prove something instead of just existing. Being happy. I am happy. I know. But you don't believe it counts unless they acknowledge it. He was right. God, he was so right it hurt. I don't know how to stop, I whispered. You start by recognizing that their opinion isn't the metric of your worth. You save lives, Nat. You're brilliant. You're kind. You're funny as hell when you're not exhausted. You're enough, exactly as you are, whether they see it or not. My eyes were burning. I didn't cry, couldn't afford to, not in this dress, not with my makeup, but I wanted to. Thai food? I managed. Thai food. And then we're going to your place, and you're going to change into sweatpants, and we're going to watch whatever mindless TV you want until you fall asleep. Deal? Deal. He pulled back onto the road, and I watched the landscape slide past, dark trees, distant lights, the familiar geography of a place I'd never quite felt at home in. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. The Thai restaurant was nearly empty, just us and one other couple and the staff preparing to close. We ordered our usual, pad thai for me, drunken noodles for him, spring rolls to share. The food was hot and perfect and tasted like relief. Your cousin seems nice, Ethan said, twirling noodles around his fork. She is nice. That's the problem. She's genuinely sweet and successful and happy. It would be easier if she was terrible. Would it, though? I thought about that. No. Probably not. I'd just find something else to feel inadequate about. Progress. You're becoming self-aware. My therapist will be so proud. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. The kind of silence that happens between people who don't need to fill every moment with words. Outside, it had started to snow, light flurries that caught the streetlights and disappeared. My phone buzzed again. And again. I pulled it out, frowning. 3 texts from my mother. We need to talk. Please call me when you get home. It's important. What's wrong? Ethan asked, seeing my face. My mom wants to talk. Says it's important. Tonight? Apparently. He reached across the table, took my hand. You don't have to call her back tonight. You don't owe her immediate access to you. I know. But now I'll just worry about what she wants. Fair point. He squeezed my hand. Want me there when you call? I did. I really did. But this felt like something I needed to face alone. I'll be okay. Rain check on the mindless TV? Standing invitation. Anytime. He drove me home, walked me to my door, kissed me in a way that made me forget about engagement parties and disappointed parents and everything except the warmth of his mouth on mine. "Text me after," he said. "Let me know you're okay." "I will." Inside my apartment, I changed into sweatpants and an old medical school sweatshirt, made myself tea I didn't drink, and stared at my phone for 15 minutes before finally calling. My mother answered immediately. "Natalie, you wanted to talk? Can you come by tomorrow? For brunch? Just you and your father and me." Tomorrow was Sunday. My day off. The one day in my rotation where I could sleep past 6 a.m. and maybe do laundry and grocery shopping like a normal human. "What's this about?" I asked. "I'd rather discuss it in person." "Mom, please, Natalie. It's important." There was something in her voice I couldn't identify. Not anger. Not disappointment. Something softer. Something that might have been vulnerability, if my mother was capable of such a thing. "What time?" I heard myself ask. 10:30? "I'll make your favorite, French toast, the way you like it." She hadn't made me French toast in years. Not since I was in high school, before medical school and residency and the gradual ossification of our relationship into formal politeness. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." After we hung up, I texted Ethan, called her back. "She wants brunch tomorrow. Just the three of us. I think I'm about to get ambushed." His response came seconds later. "Want backup?" "No. But thank you. Offer stands. Go to sleep. You need it." He was right. I was exhausted. But I lay awake in my bed, staring at my ceiling, wondering what my mother wanted to say that couldn't be said over the phone. Wondering if this was an intervention, an interrogation, or something else entirely. The snow kept falling outside my window, silent and steady, covering everything in white. ACT4, the 24-hour ultimatum. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 10:30, parking my car in the circular driveway and feeling like I was 17 again, coming home after curfew, bracing for consequences. The house looked the same as always, stately colonial, perfect landscaping, the kind of home that appeared in magazine spreads about successful professionals. My mother answered the door before I could knock, as if she'd been watching for me. "Come in, sweetheart. Your father's in the dining room." Sweetheart. She hadn't called me that in years. The dining room table was set for 3, with actual cloth napkins and the good china. French toast on a serving platter, fresh fruit, coffee in my mother's favorite pot. My father sat at the head of the table, reading something on his tablet, but he looked up when I entered. "Natalie." "Good morning." "Morning, Dad." We sat. My mother served food with careful attention, making sure I got the pieces of French toast from the middle where the custard soaked deepest, the way I'd always preferred. It was such a specific, maternal gesture that I felt my throat tighten. "So," I said, when the silence became unbearable. "What's this about?" My parents exchanged a look. My father set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. "We owe you an apology," my mother said. I stared at her. In 32 years, I could count on one hand the number of times my mother had apologized for anything. "Last night," she continued, "after you left, I spoke with Aunt Linda. And Sophia. And several other people. And I realized." She paused, gathering herself. "I realized I've been unfair to you." "Mom, please. Let me finish." She took a breath. When you said you were engaged, I didn't believe you. I thought you were making it up because you felt pressure, because Sophia was getting married and you felt left behind. And that was wrong of me. My father cleared his throat. Your mother and I have spent years worrying about you. Your career, your health, whether you were taking care of yourself. You work so much, Natalie. We rarely see you. And when we do, you look exhausted. I am exhausted. It's called being an ER doctor. We know, my mother said softly. But from our perspective, it looked like you were choosing work over everything else. Over relationships, over family, over your own well-being. And we worried that you'd wake up at 40 and regret it. So you just assumed I couldn't possibly have both? A career and a relationship? We assumed wrong. My father's voice was gruff, uncomfortable. You're a young man, Ethan, he's very impressive. We had a good conversation last night. He clearly cares about you. And it's obvious you care about him. I felt something cracking open in my chest. Something that had been locked tight for years. Why didn't you believe me? I asked, and hated how small my voice sounded. When I told you I was seeing someone, why didn't you just believe me? My mother's eyes were wet. Actually wet. I'd seen her cry exactly twice in my life, once at her father's funeral, once when I got into medical school, and both times she'd excused herself immediately to compose herself. Because I didn't want you to get hurt, she whispered. I didn't want you to build up hope about something that might not be real, might not work out. I thought I was protecting you. By assuming I was lying? By preparing for disappointment. Which is what I've always done, Natalie. It's how I protect myself. How I protected you, growing up. Set low expectations, and you're never crushed when things don't work out. I thought about my childhood. The way my mother never quite celebrated my achievements, always tempered with don't get too confident or there's always next time. The way she'd respond to my excitement with caution, my joy with warnings. I'd always interpreted it as disappointment in me. But maybe it was fear for me. That's a terrible way to live, I said quietly. I know. My mother wiped her eyes with her napkin. I know it is. And I'm sorry I taught you to live that way too. My father reached across the table, took my hand. His palm was warm and dry and familiar. You've built an extraordinary life, Natalie. We're proud of you. We've always been proud. We just don't know how to show it in a way that doesn't sound like we're trying to push you harder, make you better, protect you from failure. I don't need protection from failure, I said. I need you to trust that I can handle my own life. That I'm capable of making good decisions and building something real. We're learning that, my mother said. Slowly. Badly. But we're trying. We sat there in silence, the French toast going cold on our plates, and I felt something shifting. Not fixed, this was decades of damage, years of miscommunication and hurt. But shifting. Opening. Like a door I'd thought was permanently sealed finding a crack of light. He's good for you, my mother said eventually. Ethan. I watched you together last night, and you seemed settled. Happy. In a way I haven't seen you in years. I am happy. Good. She smiled, tentative. That's all we want. For you to be happy. Even if happiness looks different than you imagined? especially then. We finished breakfast. Talked about small things, Sophia's wedding plans, my father's latest research paper, my mother's book club. Easy conversation, surface level, but underneath it was something new. Something fragile and important. When I left, my mother hugged me at the door. Really hugged me, not the brief embrace we usually exchanged. "Bring Ethan for dinner," she said. "When you're both free. I'd like to get to know him better. The real him, not the version I invented in my head." "Okay," I said. "I will." Driving home, I called Ethan. "How'd it go?" he asked. "They apologized." "They what?" "Apologized." My mother cried. My dad held my hand. It was actually okay. "I'm glad." He paused. "How do you feel?" I thought about that. Thought about the little girl inside me who'd spent years craving her parents' approval, and the woman I'd become who'd learned to approve of herself. "Lighter," I said finally. "I feel lighter." "Good. That's good. They want you to come for dinner. Get to know you better." "I'd like that." "Even after the interrogation last night?" "Your mom was scary, but I've dealt with scarier. There was this attending during my residency who could make grown men cry with a single look. Your mother's got nothing on Dr. Richardson." I laughed, and it felt good. Real. "I love you." "I love you too. Now go home and sleep." Doctor's orders. ACT 5, Confrontation and Resolution. 3 weeks later, Ethan and I sat in my parents' living room, drinking wine and pretending to be relaxed. My mother had cooked, actually cooked, not catered or ordered in, and the house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary. "So tell me about the proposal," my mother said, curling up in her chair with her own wine glass. Natalie mentioned October, but not the details. Ethan smiled, took my hand. It wasn't anything elaborate. We'd both worked a terrible shift, mass casualty incident, car pileup on the highway. 13 patients, 4 critical. We were in the hospital for 36 hours straight. "That sounds awful," my father said. It was, I agreed. I came so close to losing a patient, 10-year-old girl, internal bleeding, unstable vitals. We got her to the OR just in time, but I was wrecked afterward. "We finally got home around 2 a.m., Ethan continued. We were standing in her kitchen, too tired to even think about food, and I looked at her and thought, I want to do this forever. Come home from terrible shifts and stand in kitchens at 2 a.m. and just be together." "So he proposed right there," I said. "No ring yet, no plan, just, will you marry me?" Ethan finished. She said yes before I'd even finished the sentence. My mother's eyes were soft. "That's perfect. That's exactly right." We picked the ring out together the next week, I added. I needed something I could actually wear at work, and Ethan wanted me to have something I loved, not just something he guessed I'd like. "Smart man," my father said, raising his glass. Dinner was easy. Comfortable. My parents asked Ethan about his family, his training, his work. Real questions, not interrogations. And Ethan asked them about their lives, their interests, treating them like people rather than obstacles to overcome. Over dessert, my mother's famous apple pie, the conversation turned to wedding planning. "Have you set a date?" my mother asked. "Not officially," I said. We're thinking May, but our schedules are complicated. We might end up doing something small at the courthouse and having a party later. I waited for judgment, for my mother to suggest that wasn't good enough, that Sophia's wedding would be so much nicer, that I was settling. Instead, she nodded. That sounds practical. And honestly, the wedding doesn't matter as much as the marriage. I stared at her. Who are you and what did you do with my mother? She laughed. I'm trying, Natalie. Give me credit. I am. I really am. Later, as Ethan and I were leaving, my father pulled me aside. You did well, he said quietly. With your career, with your life, with him. We didn't always show it, but we noticed. We were proud. Were? I asked. Are, he corrected, smiling. We are proud. Present tense. Ongoing. In the car, Ethan looked at me. That went well. It did. It really did. Think they'll actually come to the wedding? If we have one? I think they will. I think they'll even be happy about it. Progress, he said, starting the engine. Progress, I agreed. We drove through the city, past the hospital where we both worked, past the coffee shop where we'd first met, past the life we'd built together in the gaps between saving lives. Snow was falling again, gentle and clean, covering everything in possibility. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, "Thank you for coming tonight." It meant a lot. To both of us. I showed it to Ethan at the next red light. See, he said. People can change. Even parents. Apparently. So when's the actual wedding? I looked at him, at this man who'd stood beside me through interrogations and family drama and 36-hour shifts, who'd proposed in a kitchen at 2 a.m. because he couldn't imagine not doing this forever. May 23rd, I said. Small ceremony. Immediate family. Reception at that restaurant by the harbor you like. You've been planning. I've been hoping. He reached over, laced his fingers through mine. May 23rd it is. The light turned green. We drove home through the snow, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was heading towards something rather than running from something. Like I was enough, exactly as I was. Like happiness wasn't something I had to prove or perform or apologize for. It was just mine. And that was enough. The end.